Hey, welcome everybody. Welcome Jordana. Super nice to have you here on another Decommerce Live. And as you know, we do the Decommerce Lives because we get to meet people from all around the world as we're building Decommerce. And today I'm really excited to have you here, Jordana, because this week, upcoming week, is a big week in New York with Fashion Week, and you're in the middle of it all. So I'm super keen to dive into this. For everybody who hasn't heard of Jordana, which probably is not a lot of people, but Jordana is an amazing builder, entrepreneur, and really community builder in anything and everything innovation, fashion, and technology, and has been in that space for so many years. So I'm super excited to have you here, Jordana, because I feel like you're probably one of the best people to give us a glimpse of what's happening in New York and also give a glimpse of what community means. So welcome, Jordana. Please introduce yourself briefly.
Thank you so much. And it's a pleasure to be with you here. I'm a big fan of what you do with community building. I think it's so important in everything. So with that being said, I'm Jordana Guimarães, and I co-founded a company called Fashinnovation about 6 years ago. Prior to that, for 15 plus years, I was a PR director for brands like Nina Ricci, Porsche Design, Lanvin, and others. And really, my love is around community building, around bringing people together. It's really what I love to do. But yeah, that's my background in a nutshell.
And I know community is very dear to you. I'd love to hear in your words how you define that for yourself.
So community to me is just really bringing people around you that you believe in and then amplifying the message of those that are around you for others to see the beauty of why you bring them close to you. I think that that's the best way that I could put it. I mean, I'm a connector at heart, but I just feel like, it's just, for me, it's all about just having everyone come together, having people understand what each person does so that each person can help one grow. And at the same time, for that growth to happen, have collaboration be a big part of that. So that for me is what community is.
And I know firsthand that you don't just say that. These are not just words for you, but you actually do that on a daily basis. And I'd love to hear how, because I think for everybody listening here, to give a glimpse of what it actually means to live community and make that really part of your day to day. Can you share that a little bit more, how you do that?
Yeah, so it's so crazy, but just if you look at the journey of what it was like to build the company that I built at Fashinnovation, it was just 6 years ago, just coming up with an idea, writing it on a piece of paper, cold emailing everyone. And 6 years later, having over 1,000 speakers all over the world. That's included, Kenneth Cole, Donna Karen, Steve Aoki, like so many different people, and all that just through a cold email. But the reason it worked and the reason why the 1,000 speakers have now been a part of what we've built with the company, that I had built in the past, is because we came in with first pure purpose and intention, but also allowing them to see how they fit into that purpose and intention. So it wasn't us reaching out to them, speaking about what we wanted to do for us, but it was about reaching out to them and speaking to them about what we were building for us and how that could also be theirs, and how this could be not a company that I say I'm the founder of, but it's a community that we've all put together in, together, if that makes sense. So that's what I've always done, in building anything, was always just really staying true to what I was building, why I was building it, and making sure that everyone felt like they were a part of that growth. So that's how I've always done that.
So the words I'd love to dive deeper a bit later that came up now a lot were together, and the other one is purpose and values. And I feel like these two will be something that we'll dive into in a bit. But before we go there, I'd love to know what's happening in New York.
It's a lot. Well, so Fashion Week was always just about runway, pretty clothes, models. That was pretty much it for a very long time. After COVID, that changed tremendously, where a lot of people were looking for something deeper to be a part of. And you started seeing, some runway shows become presentations with purpose, with a bigger message behind it, and still only accessible to the industry. So buyers, media, that's who was able to be at the shows. Today, what we're seeing at this season is very different and very exciting, to where a lot of brands are actually opening up the doors, not only to media and buyers, but to consumers, and doing a lot of the see now, buy now type of thing, which is really interesting because it's never happened at Fashion Week. So that's one thing. The second thing that we're seeing now that there's no longer a New York Fashion Week home. So we started at Bryant Park, then we went to Columbus Circle, and then we went to Spring Studios. But now there isn't just this one place anymore. Everyone is doing their thing in different places all over the city. And so this is where now community is more important than ever, because people are not just going to one location. People have to really love a brand to go to Brooklyn. Ralph Lauren this morning actually is in the Hamptons. Like, people are literally all over the place because they're doing their own thing for their own community. And then the last thing I would say that I'm seeing a lot at Fashion Week is the digital aspect of New York Fashion Week. A lot of brands have decided not to show this year, but they're doing different things where they're really using their digital presence with digital showrooms, with digital shows, presentations, see now, buy now, online. So it's so different now, it's interesting because it's cool because you're seeing a lot of innovation, you're seeing a lot more openness for everyone to be a part of something. But it's also a little bit weird because fashion, there is this like excitement about it being like exclusive, So all of a sudden now when it's so inclusive, I wonder, and I don't know what the answer is to this, if it loses its flair a little bit. Because I see a lot of people are not coming to New York as much as they were before for Fashion Week, as they are now like really focusing more on like Paris and Milan and taking those almost more seriously. I don't want to say that's what's happening exactly, but that's what I'm feeling a sense of a little bit. So it's an interesting time. It's a lot of change in the industry.
Wow, sounds like a lot of shifts. And a couple of those really resonate with me in a sense that what I'm hearing is, for one, we call it almost a democratization. So also inviting or empowering the consumer.
Yes.
Or elevating the consumer to almost be part of something which was only for the select few earlier.
Yeah.
Which was only, the insiders, media, some VIPs, basically.
Yeah.
And what I heard as well is the second topic of decentralization almost. So like it's not a central location where it's owned by one entity and that's where it happens and everything else doesn't really matter. But it's very much decentralized, even different locations. So it's down in not only in the city, but all across different areas.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
So that's really interesting. And it really reminds me of, just kind of like the zeitgeist, almost what's happening also in technology. Obviously, it's close to me also with blockchain technology, Web3 mindsets. So seeing that slowly kind of coming into from a completely different way, but to fashion, that's interesting to hear.
Yeah.
And why do you think that's happening?
I think because people are not really like just buying to buy anymore. People are really like holding on to their dollars unless they feel like they're getting an experience. People want more. I think obviously it all started at COVID, but I think now, even with the elections coming up, the unsure of the election is getting people really like anxious. And if they're going to do something, they want to live. I feel like people are afraid that we're going to have another lockdown. Something crazy is going to happen again because there's so much happening in the world, as we know. So I do believe it's this like, from the consumer side, it's this like, I want to live it up as much as I can. So if I'm going to spend something, it's not just about buying a pretty shirt anymore. What do I get with that? What community am I a part of for that? Because people want to feel a sense of belonging. I feel like because of all of these, like, let's say, we can call them like, disagreements between countries all over the world right now. I think people are like, fashion has always been very siloed, which I think is very weird considering it's an industry that should be very connected for it to move forward in the right direction. But now I feel like even people are afraid of people. Like, no one knows, like, what can I say? What can I do? So when they see something that they can be a part of, it's exciting for them. And then for brands, they can use that opportunity now to stand for something and really focus on that something rather than just the beautiful clothes they're selling. And then the consumer now can say, wow, they're standing for this, I stand for that. If I'm a part of that brand and if I purchase that brand and if I show them loyalty, I can too be a part of this community and I won't feel so alone, which a lot of us do these days. So I think that's why all of that is happening.
So that's really back to that topic of values and standing in for those values and understanding them. And there, I'd love to understand on the topic of events now, maybe even in that context now, Fashion Week what do you see in terms of really nice elevation of events? Things that you found are interesting that you've heard, or maybe things that are in the making that haven't happened yet? What are things that excite you?
I think the thing that excites me most are people that are giving messages, whether it's for climate change, whether it's for, the democratic like votes, which we see CFDA and Vote coming together now in the 6th coming up and doing a march in New York City, which has never happened in the history of fashion, which is really interesting. I think like because now when you go to a presentation, they can really put a story in that presentation. Yes, every fashion brand, every collection has a story because there's obviously the creative director, there's a reason they designed a collection that way. That story has always been there. But now there's stories that really kind of take you to a different realm of like what you're thinking or imagining when you're looking at a collection. So I think because now we've gone from runway to more presentations, and because those stories can be instilled in those presentations, through like artistic demonstrations, whether it's dance, whether it's like, however it is that they choose to show it, that really is exciting to me. Because personally, me, and not to like say anything bad about a runway show, but a runway show, you're just sitting there and most times we don't even see ourselves in the pieces, because if we go even to inclusivity, which is something we talked about so much when COVID hit and George Floyd and all those things, but then I hate to say it, fashion didn't really keep up with the inclusivity, so much so that those departments shut down after 2 years and that was no longer a trend. So yeah, I'm excited about that, presentation aspect of things. And I hope that that can bring these important things back that are not just trends and that need to stick.
So those presentations, what happens there? What are those? And are there ways that they actually involve the audience more? So it's not just a frontal.
So those presentations, yeah. So it's like, like I said, it's the models are not just standing around. There are models that are dancing, that are showing some type of expression toward whatever that message, that key message that the designer is trying to portray. They're doing that. They're not just stand still, mannequin style, and then it depends. I mean, I haven't seen, so Fashion Week just started. I know that there are a lot of designers that say like, stay tuned, like there's a big surprise coming up. So a lot of them don't even like give off that information until you get there. But I know designers to look out for that are always in the forefront, always innovating with their presentations. The first one that comes to mind is Rebecca Minkoff. I don't know anyone that has kept up so well and really always have tried every innovation that comes to her in shows that she's done at Fashion Week. So I know that I'm sure we're going to see something amazing. Alice and Olivia is another one that's always worked with presentations and really always brought you in this like almost like this new world, kind of like a Web3 world where you walk into an experience. So I'm sure there's something that's going to happen there as well. So there's always people are going to do those things, but I'm curious to see as it progresses, because a lot of times, most times, we don't get that information until it happens.
Right. So we'll stay tuned on that.
Yeah.
And when we combine now those presentations and the values, what do you see in the market? And especially also, where do you see where brands do a really good job kind of standing for their own values? So maybe not just jumping on a trend, like what you said 2 years ago, there was a trend and everybody jumped on that. But where do you see that a brand really consistently, first of all, understands their own values and then also lives those values?
It's actually, I'm going to bring someone up that there was a little bit of controversy with during 2020 COVID time, but now I feel like she's more than like made up for those controversies. I don't have to go into what those were, but I really admire her today so much. So I'm going to speak very highly of this person right now. But there is a designer, Danielle Bernstein from We Were What, and she is a Jewish female. And, it's funny because she's always been about the consumer. She does a lot of research of what people want to see. She like really shares her life literally 24/7, what she's eating for breakfast, that she broke up with someone, everything about her life. She puts herself out there. She's super vulnerable in that way. It makes people relate to her. For the first time, she's showcasing at New York Fashion Week this season. She's never done it. She's super nervous about it. But she's one that's opening up the doors literally to all of her consumers. She's like, everybody get there. I'll try to get everyone in. She's doing the see now, buy now based on what people wanted to see. And on the part of standing for something, she's Jewish and she very much stands up for Israel. She puts days of solidarity when everything I don't even like to talk about it. It makes me crazy. The 6 hostages that we just heard about. But she really puts herself out there. She doesn't, care about taking a side and what are people going to say and am I going to lose consumers for it. No, she not only stands for it, but she interviews Holocaust survivors on her platforms that are actually like her, fashion platforms. So this is someone that I think is like, for me, exemplary of what it means to stand for something, but also regardless of the controversies, which everybody gets, whether you're big or small, it happens. People speak. We're in a big cancel culture these days, which I'm not fond of, to be quite honest. I think we need to give people opportunities. Everybody makes mistakes, but I feel like she definitely steps up in terms of standing for lots of things and always just being very strong on who she is and what she is. And I think it's amazing.
Yeah. And I think that's a really interesting point that you make, that it's as important, like it's never been more important to have your own value, especially because it's such a noisy area for brands, to not have values is tough, but also it's like a lot of brands, I feel like it's very risky to take a very clear stance on things.
100%. A lot of brands won't do it, but she really does. And she goes above and beyond, like I said. And I think that's amazing because at the end of the day, I think community, no one is meant to be known by everyone because not everyone is going to need or like what you do because we're humans. We like or we don't like, right? So I think if you stick to who you are and you have that community and you just care about making sure that community is taken care of, that's the secret to success. It's not about everybody needs to know me and buy from me because it's impossible. So
So that's back to that question of having, many, many, many followers versus a very core group of super fans. Between those, how do you think about that? What do you think is more relevant for brands these days? Is to have just a very wide casted net and just be really out there versus having a really core group of super fans that care a lot about the brand and are super close to it?
For sure, for me, the super fans goes such a long way. Like, I was with brands, so as Fashinnovation does, we do a big summit. We had over 30 speakers, which included Nima Marcus, Tapestry, Karma and Luck, etc. And it's funny because out of all the speakers, there was one brand that I'm obsessed with. Like obsessed. I'm a super fan. I literally buy every birthday someone gets something from that store. Every bride baby shower, like I'm a super super fan. Almost like a psycho. Like maybe the person would be scared knowing how much of a fan I am, but I'm that person. And so I tell everybody about it, And so I think like for that, let's say that brand, and I can even say who it is. I don't mind mentioning people because it's all. I think it's also again my community, so I want people to get close. Karma and Luck, right? That's the brand. And I feel like for them, they have those super fans that I'm sure, like me, will go there for any occasion, tell everybody about them. And as I'm doing now, I'm talking about them, right? So this is a super fan. And that's going to get many people to say, who's this brand? And go and look it up. And then eventually, so I think it's so much better for brands, especially like I said, we're very careful today with our dollars. So if we're a super fan, that's not going to impede us. Like if we're going to spend it on something, I'm going to spend it on who I'm a super fan for, So it's super important, especially today with what we're going through, financially as a country and in many parts of the world, for brands to have that super fan rather than the million of followers.
Interesting. And so let's take that example. I think it's a great example for you. So how did Carmen Luck capture you as a super fan, and why are you a super fan for their brand?
So it's actually funny. So even yesterday when the founder of Vladi spoke about the brand on stage, he mentioned that because someone asked, how did you stand out as a jewelry brand in such a saturated market coming in so late? And he said, it's not a brand. He said, it's a lifestyle. He said, and I brought my culture and who I am into the brand. So the brand speaks culture and it speaks lifestyle. And it's so true. That's how I became a super fan, because when I walked past the store, all you see when you look at the store is spirituality and eyes and the hamsa, the hand, for those of you that don't know, that is everybody wears in the necklaces and such. And when I saw that, I'm like, oh my God, this is my place, because I'm all about like spirituality and all of those things. I believe in energy, and I felt the energy just looking at the store. And it was funny even because when I walked past it, my daughters who were 6 and 8 looked and they were like, Mommy, you're going to freak out. Close your eyes. Literally, this is what they said. And they turned me to the store and I opened my eyes and I was like, oh my God. I walked in. I was like a kid in a candy shop because I felt like I belonged. I understood what they were selling. I understood. And then when I got to the register, they have this like, they do a prayer for everything that you buy. So you say, I'm buying this eye because I wanted to protect me from something I'm going through. The lady takes it, she puts it in this, I don't know what it's called, like this vase where it makes this like loud sound, and you feel like you're buying something that you're going to walk away being a better person for it. If you're spiritual, you get it. And I do. So this is how I became a super fan. So because of how he put the brand out there with culture, I was immediately like, I was like, this is my place. I'm not, nowhere else do I buy jewelry. That's it.
And do you remember the moment it clicked for you? Do you remember that? Can you elaborate a little bit on how that happened?
It was literally the moment that my daughter said, Mommy, close your eyes, you're going to freak out. For my daughters to know me better than anybody on earth and say that to me, and for me to turn around and just open my eyes, and all I saw was a big eye literally like right in front of me. It was almost like that for me was it, you know? But I think the moment that it, and even when I walked in and then saw the prayers and then saw people asking in the store, like a lot of people walked in who are not as familiar with me as I am with all of that. And they went up to the register and they were like, what does this mean? What is the eye for? And the lady explaining it, you know, so people wear it, because I almost felt like I wanted to jump in and give an explanation. I was like, you're not explaining it quite right. So that for me is really when it clicked. I was like, I need for people to understand what this brand is about. So yeah, that for me is very
so if we take that example further, so you say yourself you're a super fan. What does that mean in, let's say, business terms, or like your relationship with the brand right now, and where do you think this could head? And you can make this about Karma and Luck experience or just generally for a brand like that.
Yeah, no, so I mean, it's so crazy because, so I think for any consumer who's a super fan, not only am I going to buy there all the time now, and I do, but also even yesterday at the event, just to give an example, obviously this could happen digitally with, I mean, not to like shout you out, but Decommerce, this is what it's for. And I don't understand how brands don't see the value, because it's so important to have your community that you can engage with daily, because then you feel like they're a part of your growth. But when I was there at the event, the founder was there, and even though I had 800 people to tend to and 30 plus speakers to tend to, truth be told, which happened because I'm a super fan, you can't help it. You just want that brand to grow. I ended up finding myself, even though I had no loyalty to just him, pushing everyone to meet him. Literally everyone that came in that I found to be like, okay, this person needs to meet somebody. The first person in my mind, I'm like, Vladdy, meet this person. Vladdy, meet this person. But so much so that at the end, he was like, I need you to be with me all the time. Like, so like, it's, because I believe in it so much. So I think it can go so much beyond just the buying of something. It could be that super fan helping you grow your company, even as you did with Tebow, and not to like bring all these things up, but like it makes sense, and I saw it firsthand yesterday with that brand and that founder. So yeah, it's amazing.
So you mean that you would want to be part of, let's say, the Karma and Luck community, for example,
Yeah, for
to be
sure.
able to contribute to the brand's success in your way, like in the things that
100%.
you're able to do. So how could something
100%.
like this look like?
So, I mean, I think, to bring it up again, but what you do with e-commerce, like if I could be engaging with the brand like daily, on a digital platform, because I'm not always going to be next to the founder. It would be weird if I was and he would have to be afraid of me. But if every day I was online and I could go in and give my feedback or say, I had a dream about this, maybe you should start talking about this when it comes to spirituality. I feel this sometimes, and I know there's a lot of people just engaging in how they can maybe grow and do better and maybe just enhance what they're already offering, knowing what their consumers, why I'm buying the piece that I'm buying. I have this necklace on which has the eye, and I never took it off because when I put it on, it was like a staple day in my life. And I feel like if I take it off, everything is going to crumble. Sounds crazy, but it's the way I feel. So I feel like, those types of things for the feedback that you can get from consumers on a daily basis, having a digital way to engage with their consumers as e-commerce provides and builds, it makes a lot of sense, for a brand to grow.
Yeah. And then, I mean, you also could then get rewarded for actually all the
Yeah.
contributions that you bring over time, and
Yeah.
also be recognized for, even if the brand was, hundreds of thousands of fans and super fans in there, you would still be able
Exactly.
to be recognized for what you bring to the brand.
Exactly. And it's funny because in a physical realm, I know like at the end of the day, it was super sweet, but he's like, DM me and I'll send you some necklaces. I was like, I'll accept. I'm not going to turn it down. But that's kind of like a perk, right? That you could get digitally in other ways. So it's just like, I'm doing all of this for him. He's offering this to me as a token gift of his appreciation, which could be done to all of your super fans in a digital way, which I think is genius. I mean, it's a no-brainer with all the shifts that we're seeing in the industry.
And now, if we take a step up from what we discussed on a very specific case, which I love, and makes it very tangible. Now, if we zoom out a little bit, what types of brands do you see that would benefit the most from having their own community of superfans?
So I think for sure it's those scale up brands that were built like around community to make sure that community feels valued and they maintain to be a super fan. I think that's one case. Second case, department stores, ghosts. Like there's no one in those stores. It's like really scary actually when you walk past one in New York City compared to what it was. So, and I mean in Paris, we were just at one print that they do an amazing job. They have a recording studio, all these things that you can like participate and be a part of. In the US, they don't do that at all. So I think department stores would be a huge one. I think brands that are mass brands that have, a lot of, let's say, when you look at like J. Crew, The Gap, like I even say it like that because it's starting to get a little boring. If there's not, people want something more, right? So I think, honestly, I see so many brands that this is good for. And not because they're not doing a good job, but because the consumer is changing. Consumer behavior is changing. The brands need to shift and adapt. Fashion is an industry that's a little bit archaic in many ways. They need to evolve. They need to innovate. They speak about it. They don't act as much as they speak about. And it's so important because that's the only way I feel, because things are just going to keep changing. There's a lot of shifts happening. So it's super important for many cases. But I'd say the scale up that has that super fan and they want to keep them because they want to have them feel appreciated. I think the department stores and I think the mass brands could really get a lot of value from this. And, the mass brands will even learn maybe how to start having something that's deeper for consumers to engage with through using a platform like Decommerce.
And when you say the consumer's changing, where are they changing towards?
They're just changing towards wanting more, wanting to belong to something, wanting an experience, wanting to know that their dollars are going towards something that they believe in and care about, and, sustainability. I could tell you, I mean, and I hate to say it, consumers still really don't pay that much attention to it, but there's many ways to look at sustainability. So if you're buying something knowing that you're, giving back in some way, or if you're buying something knowing that you're going to keep it for a very long time because you are a super fan and when you get rid of it you're going to give it to someone else. If we start looking at it in more realistic ways until we start to really come up with a way that we're going to be a sustainable industry, which is a lot of ways to do it, but yeah, it's a whole different story. But I just think consumers want to be a part of change. That's it in a nutshell. Consumers want to be a part of change. Today, everybody wants to see change. Everybody stands for something. There's a lot of things to stand for because there's a lot of problems going on right now. So that's what brands have to do. And I'll just give a quick last Kenneth Cole, like the way he's like stayed relevant in a market where so many things are coming in is because he stands for something for every collection that he puts out. And he's very like adamant in that. And so he's able to stay relevant and he's able to be someone that people look up to and say, wow, like he gives back so much and over and over and over continues to win prizes and very, deserving so because he stands for something and he's giving people a chance for change and everybody wants to see change.
Yeah, that's super interesting. And I think the consumer wants to be part of shaping something and being part of whatever they wear, what they watch, what they eat. Couldn't agree more. And last question here, I'd love to understand in your view, what do you think? I mean, because community is such a big word, and I feel like many brands would say, yes, we know it's important, but how would you recommend a brand to start? Just get started with something. Do you have any specific suggestions there?
I would say that's a good question. Thing is that right now brands are really like they have so many platforms, we all have so many platforms. So how do you know who your super fan is if you've never done it? I think the best way to do it would be to start off with an event. It could be digital, it could be physical, and doing kind of like a call out on all of your social platforms with a company like Decommerce. And I'm sorry, like I'm really saying this because like this is what it's for, right? But like taking Decommerce, putting an event together, giving that experience of having people engage, coming up to the event. What do they want to see at the event? Making them like almost making them feel like they're a part of putting this event together with the brand. It could be small, doesn't have to be big because you're focusing on your super fans and seeing what that brings to you. Small case scenario. Once that works, and it's going to work because people are going to be like, wow, I get an opportunity to be a part of something exclusive and I've been a super fan for such a long time. I'm going to sign up for this. It's just like you continue to make it bigger and bigger and bigger. And then you have, you know, this solution that everybody can be a part of on a daily basis digitally, but you start with an event. I think that's the best way to start.
Amazing. Sounds good. And also, I mean, I want to pass this back to you. Also, I know you organize amazing events. So if anybody listening in here over here and wants to organize a great event, I know Jordana is really good at doing that. So I know we're a little bit over time. So where can people find you if they wanted to reach out?
So that I really speak what I believe, what I speak, and what I speak is true. So you could literally reach out to me on LinkedIn, my full name, or I am Jordana Guimarães. That's all across everywhere, Instagram, etc. And if you reach out to me, I'm always gonna be like, hey, even probably give you my number so we could chat. I'm very, very, very like that type of person. And if you want to see all these amazing speakers speak, we'll put a link after, but there's an event I did yesterday will be fully digital, free to anyone and everyone, September 14th, and a lot of amazing speakers speaking about fashion and the industry, from entrepreneurship to AI, all the things. So we'll make sure to put that link up.
Great. Thanks so much, Jordana.
Thank you.
Great to have you, and we'll talk later.
Yes, looking forward.
Thank you
so much.
in. See you next week.
Thanks.